Hi guys, I'm Shmee. Hello and welcome back to the channel where you join me in the storage with the Shmeemobiles. But today it is time for my first drive in the new arrival, my dream car, the Mercedes SLS AMG Black Series. I've been talking about these cars for years and it still doesn't quite feel like reality that this is actually my car here in the garage and ready to be driven. You might be wondering why I haven't yet been behind the wheel after collecting the car over at Schaltkulisse in Munich in Germany and then trailering it back behind the G63 with turbo transport. Well, it's all down to the laws around importing a car here to the UK, which I will explain in more detail in just a moment. So today I'm going to be taking it up to the location where the test will be carried out to officially import and register it. That means I've got about a 2.5 hour drive in each direction. The only problem is that the weather outside today is utter garbage. It is kind of snowy, sleety, rainy, horrible stuff for a first drive in a new car. But nonetheless, I can't wait. 250 miles coming up, then eventually it will be fully registered. The new car here in the garage, a first drive in the SLS Black Series. It is crazy to me that this car is now here in my garage, but joining the other Shmeemobiles, all under covers at the moment. But we've got the Toyota Supra, the Ford GT, then the Aston GT8, the McLaren Senna, the AMG GTR Pro, the Heritage RS, and I've driven over in the G63, which is currently drying out from the weather outside. Of course, this is not the final cover. I've borrowed it from my Aston Martin at the moment. I'll get one in the future, but just to keep it undercover for the time being, which actually, of course, I will need to take off in just a second. We've got the Himalaya grey paintwork, but the big thing to talk about are the number plates. So this is just a show plate. This is not officially registered at this time. The car carries a German export plate, which I actually need to put on. So I just need to pop these off. You kind of remove it. I'll need 2 hands to do that. But basically, while the car is officially registered on German export plates, it is only insured, and of course it needs to be insured to actually drive it on the roads, if you are taking it directly to an MOT test station or to an IVA test station or somewhere where it is going to be eventually registered to drive properly. So that is why I've not been able to take it out and why I'm taking it out now, because we are heading up to a test, although I am actually running just a touch late, so I do need to get a move on. I'll get the cover off then, put the other plates on, which are currently in the back of the car, try and get this cover off. It's a slightly awkward fit, given it is not the cover that officially goes on this. Using the German plate frames, it's a little bit easier to pop the plate out, but we have the export plates back here, which are valid for a couple of weeks. Just to drive and basically transport it and move it around, so long as you've got all the paperwork, which I have under here as well. Yes, so I need to crack on with that, then hop on board, get it started up, which will sound amazing thanks to the 6.2 litre naturally aspirated V8, and then crack on. That just took a couple of seconds. The plates are now swapped over for the time being, and hopefully in the not too distant future we will have the car back on UK plates as well. But one thing about the SLS is, of course, you have those iconic gull-wing doors. The doors like the old 300SL from the 1950s, but when you open these, one thing a lot of people don't think about is that they actually open in a really small amount of space, and then they are fully open, making it really easy to climb in and out. If you only had that amount of room normally, you'd actually struggle. It's just super easy. Anyway, let me climb in here. We will get it started up. We've got the bucket seats, quite a few things that are similar actually to say my AMG GTs, but to give a press of the button, wake it up, turn on the ignition. We've got about 6,500 miles. Take a listen to this. Oh yes, it barks into life, it snaps into life. I love the sound of this car already. And who knows what we might do with it in the future, hey? For the time being, I need to take this out, put the G63 in this space, and start the drive. It's a long old way ahead of me, but I can't wait for this. Let's head on. Fortunately, it looks like it might even clear up soon. It is no longer a storm. The sun hopefully is going to poke through the clouds sooner rather than later. But here we are, on board my SLS Black Series. Now, I've been lucky to drive them a few times before. The factory car a few times in anger, also a couple of times from friends. So I knew that this car was going to be great. Normally when I buy a car, it's generally either before it's even released or after we've seen it, but no one has driven it. So you don't really know what it's going to be like. You just hope it's going to be a good car overall. In this case, I knew that this was one I wanted. Obviously, I'm driving pretty gently just out of London at the moment. In the future, there will be plenty of opportunity to drive this in anger. But the one thing is that, of course, it is left-hand drive. They made very few of these as right-hand drive cars. We think only 15 in the UK. It must be less than 100 in total globally, out of what is only 350 SLS Black Series in total anyway. It's not exactly a common thing. When you think nowadays you have thousands of GT2 RSs, even though it's a pretty limited model model. You have 2,000 almost of the Porsche 911 Speedster, 800 F12 TDFs. All of these numbers have kind of completely changed versus what they were back not all that long ago with this, when it was only 350, making it super, super, super rare, which is why I've been kind of hunting for one, trying to find this very car. This one has done 6,000 and a bit miles, so it's still pretty new, and I think the previous owner never would have driven it in weather like this. I think it was kind of a garage queen car most of the time. I'm certainly going to be driving it whatever the weather and doing lots and lots of miles and taking it on a few big trips this year. In fact, I've got quite a few very, very big things planned. Just have to watch out with the blind spots being left-hand drive, but I'm heading straight out of town on the M1, the motorway, to head on up, so it's going to be a bit of a cruise. I do need to put some fuel into it, but to obviously convert and import a car, you need the dashboard in miles per hour. Fortunately, we've got a digital speedo, so that's all nice and easy. You need to put the car in miles, you need to swap the headlights, you need to do a few other things to have it as a permanent import, and that is the process we're going to go through today. One or two surprises, actually, that you might not have thought about to do with that, but basically, driving this, it feels quite similar to the AMG GTs. Very long bonnet, sat right back towards the rear axle, massively powerful, 6.2 litre naturally aspirated V8, 631 horsepower, and one of the things as well with this car that I've noticed in these conditions is that the tail likes to slip around and move a little bit. It's on the original tyres, so those are probably about 7 years old now. The car is about 6 years old. This was one of the last of the cars that was actually registered, but it feels so insanely cool. I can't wait for the first time to actually drive it with the doors up. I'm not going to try that right here, but you can basically drive it and just hang out the window or out the door just for fun. But yeah, we're in here. If I just pop it into neutral, actually, check this out. I love it. The driving mode selectors, you have a little toggle in the center, but what that does basically is just the gearbox. It doesn't change much about the setup. You have a suspension control, but it doesn't change things in the way the, I guess, latest generation of supercars do, where you can completely adjust and vary just about every setting. Oh, I need to get out here into the other lane. Let's do this. There we go. Oh gosh. Steering wheel, still very nice, still with the dynamic steering wheel. I actually thought that might be a little bit more worn out, because like I said in the collection video, I literally picked this up sight unseen. I didn't see it until the day I was picking it up, at which point I'd already paid. But I trusted the guys at Calissa, and it has to be said, they did a very nice job for me. Listen to that, just being aware that it will get slippy and traction will come on out of nowhere. Yes! Oh, yeah, there, felt a little slip. Okay, carefully does it. Oh, this is unreal. I'm actually at the wheel of my SLS Black Series. I know, I'm sorry to say that so many times, but that's kind of how I feel about this, because I've longed for one of these cars for quite a while now, wanting this to be my first kind of retro iconic car to add to the collection, to the garage, thinking that this, you know, I've always said, I've been very open that my favourite car in the world is the Ferrari F50, my second favourite is the Porsche Carrera GT, my third is the SLS AMG Black Series, so this is where I had to start, right? Who knows what the future has in store, but this is, it's my era. This was the car that kind of I saw when it came out and thought, gosh, I would love one of those, but was nowhere near the position to do so. In fact, if I go way back, fun story for you, back when I had my V8 Vantage, my first one, 2010, fast forward like 2 years, 2012, when I eventually bought my R8 Spider. Before that, I actually went to look at an SLS, but it was about £12,000 more expensive than the R8 for an SLS Gullwing, and I'm not gonna lie, at the time I didn't have the extra £12,000, so it didn't happen. I couldn't do the SLS, and I bought the R8, which I love, don't get me wrong, but I always wanted one of these, and then the Black Series obviously was distant money, hundreds of thousands for one of these, but here we are, cruising in mine, and yes, this is going to be, like I said, a gentle, leisurely drive. This is not exactly anything fancy, particularly with today's weather, but just amazing to be here, to be at the wheel of it, to be taking it today, to get it officially registered, to plan for the things that are ahead. And you might be wondering about PPF. The car doesn't have PPF, which is definitely tearing me up inside to be driving it right now, but it did all of its previous life without PPF. There are 1 or 2 marks on the front. Generally, it's in exceptional condition. It was wrapped for a part of its life, so that helped. But it's not perfect, so I'm kind of allowing it, letting it slide, because I want to get this done and I want to drive it. And I don't exactly know what I want to do with it. I mentioned that I might be wanting to paint it and change the colour. I'm thinking about it, but this is so nice. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, this is going to be a long old drive ahead. I'm going to pull in here, grab some fuel,
and then continue on a fairly boring drive, just getting familiar with the infotainment and systems and stuff, and then we will get to the destination where we can take you through that process too. This has not exactly been a thrilling journey so far. It's taken about 30 or 40 minutes longer than it should have done thanks to the traffic, but this car is an absolute beast. The naturally aspirated engine is glorious. It is such a stunning thing. If I pop it back into manual just now, drop some gears, it's the noise that it makes. And yes, the double clutch isn't as fast as the latest generation of gearboxes, but listen to this. It's so cool! And of course, given the car is a used car, it is run in. I'm not that used to this. Normally I buy cars and I have to kind of baby them for the first 1,000 miles or so, but this is good to go. It's absolutely awesome, and it's so connected. The steering feel in this car is what makes it for me so much. It feels completely dialed in. And this is the noise with the windows closed when they're open. It's ferocious. This car, a bit windy today. I'm in dreamland. I'm in absolute dreamland. This thing is awesome. Totally epic and awesome. I don't have too much further to go. There are so many modes and things as well that I need to learn about because I know the current Mercedes and AMG systems so well. Obviously this was the Mercedes-Benz with AMG being a separate kind of thing era. The SLS was the first AMG car, but open the window for the downshifts. It's fast as well. Oh man, this is me in a car. It's comfortable, you can tour in it. Even without the B&O sound system, it still sounds good. There's a load of luggage space back there. I can shove more luggage on the parcel shelf behind me. Yeah, I'm happy. I'm very happy. Instantly at home. It's the same seats actually as the AMG GTR. I think they haven't even changed anything about them, which work very well for me. I'm very familiar with them. The steering is just awesome. It's all slightly older school, but it's oh so perfect. Made it then to my car import, where we're going to start going through what is needed with this car. But I'm also joined here today by my friend Chris from Car Finders.
Hello.
Thank you very much. Chris has basically been helping me with a lot of this. He was actually out in Germany with me when we collected it. And now we're here doing the paperwork, doing all of that side of things. Massive shout out to him. But basically with this, we have to do a few different parts. So of course it's a European spec car, which means it has all of the kind of regular documentation and emissions tests and that side of thing. But at the back, we have the fog and reverse light back here, which kind of has to be swapped around because in the UK, the fog has to be right of center. So we have to swap that for a new light at the back. The front headlights, of course, pivot in slightly different directions. So they need to be swapped around too. Looking pretty dirty right now from this drive up, but they need to be swapped in terms of the way they pivot. Inside, one thing it has to do is have the dashboard showing miles, but we're lucky that the digital dash does that straight from the off, not too much stress to worry about there. But these things have to be done before it can then go through the actual tests along with the paperwork, and then ultimately swap over that export German plate to a UK one. The good news is that the checks have all been done, the car has passed the test and is now going to go and get what is called the MOT. So over here in the UK, cars have to have an annual checkup called the MOT, just testing that everything is working. It is done annually, but now, yeah, all set. The lights are lowered, the fog light at the back has been changed. Obviously it was up on the ramps to get to the underside of it, but magic. We're going to be ready to head back and continue the drive in not all that long now. You can see then down here, we just put it into reverse. Yes, we're now the right way around. Obviously they were flipped before. New fog lights on the back. All good with that. And it's going to go off. Hey, so we're all done now. Just had it up on the ramp to have a quick look at something. The car has passed through the MOT, and that means it is going to be time to head on back towards London. Back behind the wheel. I can't wait, although I am going to have to wait about 10 days until the paperwork is done for the number plate from this point before it can become kind of a regular outing in the car. But yes, just listen to that engine note. Wonderful thing. Very happy. Big thanks to the guys here at My Car Import for handling all of the changes required and the paperwork to do with making this a UK car going forwards. The best bit of this then is that I get to drive the car again. I'm going to pop it straight back into manual. We will head on out. Unfortunately, of course, it is now starting to get dark. But all I can do until the plates are on is get this one back home, and then I'll have a patience game waiting until the registration, the paperwork comes through. I'll get given and assigned a normal registration plate, a standard issue one, and then I'll do the transfer, which I could have done if I brought the right document with me, but alas, I didn't, which takes a couple of days to then get my SH62 MEE plate, as we saw earlier, officially registered onto this. The thing I have to remember is left-hand drive car, still drive on the left. Don't drive on the right and make a mistake just because I'm not thinking properly. That's the hardest thing to do when you are driving between different countries. Oh, it's so good. It's such a raw sound. You just lose that on newer turbocharged engines. They don't do the same kind of aggression and brutalness. This feels like it's a balance of old school without being too crazy old school, along with still a bit of a modern feel in terms of the interior, in terms of the looks. That's barely in the rev range, like 3,000 RPM. It's silly, but I love it. And you know what? That's what part of this is supposed to be about. Having cars to enjoy them. And then, and this is the best bit, coming out onto a faster stretch. Let's put the foot down. I think the rest of this journey is probably going to be pretty uneventful. Now about 120 miles, 2 and a bit hours or so on the M1 down towards London. It's going to be a long old slog, but there will definitely have to be a proper drive, a first proper drive with this car on some really good roads. Of course, the year ahead has a lot of plans. It will be doing some track events, it will be travelling internationally. I've got some big things in the works. Still need to decide exactly what I'm going to be doing in terms of colours and look and appearance, and a few things that I want to change, all of which is going to come in the not too distant future. But a huge thanks to my friend Chris at the Car Finders for his help in involving this car, getting it to the UK in terms of paperwork, there at My Car Imports as well. This has all gone very smoothly. A great outing for me as well, to be able to stretch the legs, to be able to drive the car and enjoy it a bit. But I think knowing that this drive back is not going to be thrilling, I'll probably wrap things up there. So thank you very much for watching, guys. Thank you for your support as always. I hope that you're enjoying some of these videos with this car. Like I said earlier, it is basically one of my ultimate dream cars, up there at the very top of my shortlist. A car that I cannot believe I'm now lucky enough to own and drive. And I just want to say thank you again to all of you for being part of this, because without you guys, this wouldn't be possible. And I'm just truly grateful. Thank you very much. For now though, the long old drive back down towards London. Thank you for watching again, and I'll see you again very soon. Cheers.